Coming up on Bridge City News, another child has died in Cardston County. This time it was a 4-year-old who was swept down the St. Mary River. More than 60 Alberta doctors have written a letter to Premier Jason Kenney expressing their concerns over a bill they say doesn't go far enough to protect Albertans from the dangers of vaping. And Prime Minister Justin Trudeau says he will not do a prisoner exchange to free the 2 Michaels being detained in China.
Your nation, your province, your southern Alberta. From the heart of Lethbridge, it's Bridge City News with Hal Roberts.
Thanks so much for joining us. Tragedy on the water this weekend in Cardston County. RCMP say a 4-year-old child died near Wolford Provincial Park. They received a call around 5:30 p.m. on Saturday about a missing child. A search and rescue team recovered the body of the young boy yesterday around 11:30 a.m. on a sandbar located a few kilometers from the park along the St. Mary River. The name of the child was not released. A group of 68 Alberta physicians has written a letter to Premier Jason Kenney, Health Minister Tyler Shandro, and Chief Medical Officer of Health Dr. Dina Hinshaw regarding Bill 19. It is legislation that is intended to protect Albertans from the harms of tobacco, secondhand smoke, and to address the surge in vaping among youth. In the letter, doctors are asking the province to amend the bill to ban all vaping flavors, except for tobacco flavor, and reduce nicotine concentration levels from 66 to just 20 milliliters. Doctors say the bill, as it stands now, does not go far enough.
A common misconception is that vaping or e-cigarettes are an effective tool for smoking cessation, and that these are wonder products that are somehow going to reduce the dangers of tobacco in the population. There are certainly individual people who may have cut back on their smoking using vaping, but the overwhelming data does not support that this is an effective smoking cessation aid. Rather, vaping and e-cigarettes are a gateway to smoking and to tobacco use in children and youth. They are highly addictive and have extremely high nicotine concentrations in them. Vaping is dangerous, and we need to make every step that we can to protect our children and youth from vaping.
The legislation, which was introduced earlier this month, does include a ban on anyone under the age of 18 from using e-cigarettes. Doctors continue to advocate that vaping is harmful to everyone. The province of Alberta is spending an additional $4 million over 4 years to expand a program to help those battling addiction. The AHS initiative, called the Virtual Opioid Dependency Program, uses telehealth technology to allow Albertans to access treatment in the battle against opioids. The program also provides clients with addiction counseling and offers supports, including traditional services. Officials say once enrolled, a patient has regular video conferencing visits with a doctor or other healthcare professionals. Alberta RCMP say they have handed out 7 fines to American tourists who they say have violated public health rules in place to prevent the spread of COVID-19. 6 of the $1,200 tickets were issued to travelers who had stopped in Banff National Park for long hikes near Lake Louise. The Canada-US border is closed to all non-essential travel until at least July 21st, but some Americans who got through say they were just traveling to Alaska. 2 more Lethbridge drug dealers have been arrested following an investigation by Lethbridge police. Officials say during a search of a backpack, they uncovered a host of drugs including methamphetamine, fentanyl, heroin, and cocaine. Police also seized around $12,000 in cash. The dealer's accomplice had a small amount of cocaine, along with a can of bear spray and around $400 in cash. 50-year-old Mark Anthony Brown and 47-year-old Peter Conrad Bissonnette, both of Lethbridge, face a wide range of charges, including drug possession and trafficking. Both will appear in court on October the 1st. The 8th annual Lethbridge Police Run, in partnership with Special Olympics, is coming up this fall. This year, it'll be held virtually due to the coronavirus. A Lethbridge Police Service Run Facebook page will be made where participants can post videos of themselves running to share with their community. Those joining in the race will be able to run between October 1st and the 9th.
The best part about it is, with it being an annual race, we didn't want to lose momentum. We didn't want to not be able to raise that extra money for the Special Olympics. So we decided, given the COVID, we wanted to respect people and social distancing and the COVID concerns. So we decided to throw it out there and do a virtual race. So this way we can keep our annual status, we can still hopefully raise some money for Special Olympic athletes, and best of all is we're encouraging people from around the world to partake, which I thought would be really cool. We can have some runners run the 5K, the 10K, or a half marathon from anywhere in the world, and you don't have to, but you can submit your time and we'll record it through our race timers. And just another way to kind of give back to our community in these difficult times.
To register for the run, you can visit the Lethbridge Police Service Run website. Making sure that we keep in touch with seniors is very important, especially during the COVID-19 pandemic. Volunteer Lethbridge is offering a new program for our elderly. As Micah Quinn explains now, it's a great way for volunteers to engage with seniors through a simple phone call.
The Keep in Touch program is orchestrated by Volunteer Lethbridge, and it's a new way to connect volunteers with seniors who are feeling isolated or lonely.
Or perhaps need some assistance with accessing resources and they're not quite sure how to or where to go or what to do, especially during this time where a lot of offices are closed. They may not have access or they don't have access to social media, so just having that person be able to assist them with finding the help that they need.
Volunteer Lethbridge will pair seniors with a verified volunteer who will call them once or twice a week to have a conversation and swap stories.
And unfortunately, we are seeing a decline in many seniors through this time of isolation. Even just not having that contact or that connection, that social contact, has really created not only emotional problems, but mental health issues, but often even led to physical challenges, less mobility, not moving around so much.
Riedelhuber says this program is also a great method to talk to seniors and let them know what's going on outside. It's also a great way to talk to them to see if they need to see a doctor or go to an appointment. For Bridge City News, I'm Micah Quinn.
As municipalities do their part to come out of the economic downfall attached to COVID-19, the City of Lethbridge announced that they'll be doing some changes to encourage residents to shop downtown. BCN's Ainsley O'Reilly explains how Lethbridge is recovering better than other cities.
The City of Lethbridge has a new look. The Downtown BRZ and Heart of Our City Committee have partnered to bring us new signage and a whole new downtown feel, including street patios.
You can come to one of the restaurants down here, or even just bring your lunch. You could bring a bag lunch and sit here and eat whatever you'd like. It's really, you've got social distance, you've got open space. It's a beautiful day. Come on down.
It's particularly restaurants and pubs where they can bring their food services out onto the street, I think is really great.
The City of Lethbridge, Downtown BRZ, and Heart of Our City Committee pooled their resources and received $50,000 in grant funding from the Alberta government's Community and Regional Economic Support Program. All parties acknowledged the financial challenges of COVID-19. But Downtown BRZ Executive Director Ted Stilson says Lethbridge is better off than other municipalities.
I think Alberta Economic Development is talking about 25 to 35% of businesses will not open again. We think we'll be a little bit better than that. We still, compared to other municipalities in North America, we've done quite well.
As part of the rebrand, a Streetery Festival Square has been created on 6th Avenue South, along with other outdoor patios for local businesses. Something to look forward to as we kick off the summer. For Bridge City News, I'm Ainsley O'Reilly.
Lethbridge City Council looked at an overview of the city's municipal development plan. Manager of Planning Maureen Gehring says the MDP, which covers the next decade, is quite ambitious.
The way the format for this particular municipal development plan is set up, it is a little bit more structured towards implementation. So our past or our current MDP is actually quite aspirational in terms of its focus, and that's one of the reasons why we looked at changing some of the policy areas into actual outcomes. And so it's a good change, we believe, because we can get a lot more specific with what we're asking for and then being able to measure those specificities a lot better.
Last year, the population for the city went over 100,000. The current census has Lethbridge at close to 102,000 people now. Mandy Sandbach is the president of the Lethbridge Sustainable Living Association, a group that gathers together community members for a variety of activities, including something called the Fruit Rescue Program.
We have a relationship with landowners who have fruit trees and shrubs that they're not able to get to picking. Lots of our seniors can't get out and get their trees picked. Course, yeah. And then we have a group of volunteers, and so what we do is we match our volunteers with our landowners, and we create these picking events where we're able to utilize the fruit. Thousands and thousands of pounds of fruit every year we divert from falling on the ground and distribute it within the community, both to our seniors, the landowners, our volunteer pickers, the food bank, the soup kitchen, lots of different places.
Catch the full interview with Mandy Sandbach from Lethbridge Sustainable Living coming up in the second half of our show. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau says it was the Chinese and not him who first linked the arrest of Canadians Michael Spavor and Michael Kovrig with the arrest of Huawei executive Meng Wanzhou. Earlier today, a Chinese foreign minister spokesperson told reporters that Trudeau has to stop making irresponsible remarks about its decision to charge the two men with spying.
Within the very first few days of the detention of Michael Kovrig and Michael Spavor, Chinese officials were highlighting a link between the detention a week before of Madame Meng and the arrest of the two Michaels. It has been obvious from the beginning that this was a political decision made by the Chinese government, and we deplore it and have from the very beginning. We will continue to advocate strongly and firmly for the release of these two Canadians who've been arbitrarily detained. And again, we want to thank all of our friends and allies around the world who've consistently and continually stepped up to highlight that this arbitrary detention of Canadian citizens is unacceptable.
Trudeau was emphatic, saying that he will not offer a prisoner exchange of sorts to resolve the issue, saying it's a matter for the courts. Prime Minister Trudeau also says Canada has strong rules for protecting temporary workers on farms from COVID-19, but in some cases, they have not been followed. After the death of a third foreign farm worker, Trudeau promised punishments for employers caught not following proper procedures.
We brought in strong measures around mandatory quarantines for arriving temporary foreign workers and have rules in place that protect those workers. Obviously, there are cases in which those rules were not followed, and we are extremely concerned by that, and there will be consequences for companies that did not follow the rules designed to protect workers in Canada. In Canada, anyone doing work, let alone essential work as part of our food chain, needs to feel protected. Obviously, in the case of these three tragic deaths, that wasn't the case, and we are ensuring that changes are made and that there will be consequences.
More than 2.3 million Americans have been affected with the COVID-19 virus, along with more than 130,000 deaths. Even though states are starting to loosen restrictions, many frontline workers say the pandemic is far from over. Many in the medical community are urging people to continue following safety precautions to limit the spread of the novel coronavirus.
I work with these patients every day, so I see it. I see patients unfortunately dying from this virus every day.
This is a real thing. It is not fake. It is definitely one that we need to take serious precautions on. Keep our masks on, keep our hands washed, and know that we're here for them. We come to work so that we can take care of them, but we need them to take care of themselves and not get relaxed.
Everybody is out lounging on the beaches and just thinking that it's over, and it's not. It's far from being over. Unfortunately, it's those people that will keep this pandemic going.
A shooting in a popular Minneapolis nightlife area last night left one man dead and 11 others injured. Locals say it was a chaotic scene that sent people into businesses and restaurants for cover.
From 3 months of not being able to do business to having to keep up with paying rent in uptown, it's very expensive to having to protect our place during the riots and board up, and now all this civil unrest, and everyone is just very wild and rampant on the streets right now, running around, and on Friday night people are racing around here shooting fireworks from their cars, so that's probably why the police were barricading off the streets here. Right now no one trusts the police, and even as a small business, bar and restaurant here in Uptown, usually on weekends we hire off-duty police officers as extra security, and they normally park their squad cars in front of all the businesses. But none of us are doing that right now because we consider them a liability.
Tensions are already heightened in many regions across the United States following the death of George Floyd. A New York City police officer was suspended without pay yesterday after he was recorded putting his arm around a man's neck in what the police commissioner called an apparent chokehold. This is how it unfolded.
No, it's not, but yeah. Go ahead. Facebook, love this shit. Stoner, you're the only one Facebook love to give me a breathalyzer. Stoner, go ahead. I ain't driving. Yo, nigga. Don't bro. What are you doing? Get away from me, bro. I ain't even. I'm like, come on, bro. I didn't even talk about this shit. Yeah, of course you didn't. We're on camera too. Stop blocking with you. Well, I'm just trying to go. Yo, stop choking him, bro. Yo, stop choking him. Yo, he's choking him. Let him go, bro. He's out. Let him go. Look. Back up.
It was on this day that France falls to Nazi Germany. Joe Louis continues his dominance in the boxing ring, and entertainers Judy Garland and Fred Astaire die. This is Today in History for June the 22nd.
June 22nd, 1940. France falls to Nazi Germany during World War II, forced to sign an armistice 8 days after German troops overrun Paris. On the same day, a year later, the Nazis invade the Soviet Union, a move that proves disastrous for Adolf Hitler's Third Reich. 1945. During the final months of World War II, the Battle of Okinawa ends in the Pacific. The United States secures the Japanese island after nearly 12 weeks of fighting that's among the war's bloodiest. 1938. Heavyweight boxing champ Joe Louis knocks out Germany's Max Schmeling in round 1 of their rematch. Announcer Clem McCarthy is ringside for the fight at New York's Yankee Stadium.
Right and left to the head, a left to the jaw, a right to the head, and Donovan is watching carefully. Lewis measures him, right to the body, a left up to the jaw, and Schmeling is down.
1969.
Over the rainbow.
In London, singer and actress Judy Garland dies of an accidental overdose of sleeping pills. She was 47. And 1987.
Just the way you look tonight.
Actor and dancer Fred Astaire, who teamed up with Ginger Rogers on the silver screen, dies in Los Angeles at age 88. Today in History, June 22nd. Ross Simpson, The Associated Press.
Now here is a cute little story. The province of Alberta has come out with a list of the most popular baby names from 2019. The most popular name for boys was Noah, and for girls, Olivia. Other popular girls' names include Charlotte, Sophia, Emma, and Ava. Beautiful names. For the boys, the top 5 also included Ethan, Jack, Liam, and Oliver. Alberta families welcomed just over 51,500 babies last year. It's a bit of a baby boom. The province has more than 13,000 baby names were inspired by pop culture as well, including the name Brienne from the Game of Thrones, Arwen from Lord of the Rings, and Loki from Marvel. The first official day of summer was on Saturday, and it felt a lot like summer today, didn't it? With the sunshine and hot temperatures. But will they continue? Full weather details are on deck. Jeanette Rocher is here now with a complete look at the weather forecast. Jeanette, we had lots of sunshine today, and it'll be even hotter tomorrow. A good reminder to spread on the sunscreen.
Yeah, sunscreen, sunglasses, hats, everything you got, because it is a scorcher. We've had some beautiful days here in southern Alberta. 27 was the high today. Lots of clear skies, 14 the overnight low. We could see some west wind gusting to 40 kilometers per hour at times this evening. Into tomorrow, waking up to sunny skies. 30 is the high tomorrow, UV index of 9 or very high. And then that overnight low, again 14 degrees, which is not too shabby for an overnight low. And then as we get into the 5-day forecast, we are going to see a mix of sun and cloud on Wednesday. We could see a 60% chance of showers coming at us Wednesday evening right through to Thursday. 28 degrees is the high for Wednesday, 22 for Thursday with 60% chance of showers. Sunshine expected on Friday, and look at that, 28 degrees. 24 the high on Saturday with a mix of sun and cloud. We could see a chance of showers coming at us again on Sunday with a high of 20 degrees. And isn't that always the case? We have beautiful weather during the week, and then we reach the weekend and we see the rain come. 23 is the average for this time of year. We're definitely seeing temperatures higher than that. The low average is 9. The high temperature on this day was back in 1941. It was 35 degrees, and the chilliest was 4 degrees. That was in 63. The sun rose this morning at 5:24 a.m. and our evening sunset at 9:43 p.m. As we're seeing, that's about 1 minute shorter than it was the other day, which was our summer solstice on Saturday, the longest day of the year. I think we reached, I don't know, it was 16 hours and 39 minutes of daylight as we finally saw summer come upon us. Over on the west coast, Victoria and Vancouver's highs 21 degrees. Vancouver could see a chance of showers there. Chance of lightning in Edmonton, 26 degrees, 28 in Calgary, a mix of sun and cloud. Now this is into tomorrow's highs. 27 is the high for Saskatoon, mix of sun and cloud. Sunny skies expected in Regina, 26 is their high, 23 expected in Winnipeg. They could see a risk of an afternoon thunderstorm there as well. Now Toronto could see a chance of rain, 25 degrees is the high. We are going to be seeing, there is a heat warning in effect for Ottawa and Montreal. Mix of sun and cloud there in Ottawa. They could see some afternoon showers, and Montreal could see a possibility of a thunderstorm later on tomorrow. Now Fredericton's high 31 under sunny skies. It's going to feel even hotter with that humidex as they are under a heat warning as well. Charlottetown's high 29 tomorrow. Sunny skies, a mix of sun and cloud in Halifax with 26 is the high. They could see some drizzle as well, and a mix of sun and cloud over in St. John's, Newfoundland tomorrow. There you go, that is your weather.
The Conference Board of Canada says our economy will shrink by 8.2% this year due to the coronavirus pandemic. It does, however, say the economy may have started to recover from a historic recession. The board says that if we should avoid a second national shutdown, the economy could grow by 6.7% next year and 4.8% in the year 2022. The new governor of the Bank of Canada is warning Canadians that a short economic bounce back to our economy may not last. Tiff Macklem says the central bank expects to see some growth up to September as more people return to work. But Macklem says, however, there will be long-term economic damage as the country charts a road to recovery from the coronavirus pandemic. He says ongoing physical distancing rules may mean workplaces cannot be as productive as they once were, adding that many services will remain difficult to deliver. The number of orphan wells in British Columbia has apparently more than doubled because of the failure of one oil and gas company. The BC Oil and Gas Commission says it has designated 401 wells and 3 facilities formerly owned by Calgary-based Ranch Energy as orphans. That means there is no owner willing to or able to restore those sites. Ranch slipped into receivership in July of 2018. Ford is bringing back its legendary Bronco SUV, but is changing the unveiling date of July 9th because it would have taken place on O.J. Simpson's birthday. The former football great has become infamous for his riding of a white Bronco during a televised 1994 low-speed chase through Los Angeles after failing to turn himself in. He was later acquitted of the double murder of his ex-wife Nicole Brown Simpson and her friend Ronald Goldman. The new Bronco is now scheduled to make its debut on July 13th. Now, here's a look at today's markets. The TSX was up 42 points on the day to finish at 15,516. The Dow was up 153 points to 26,024. The S&P 500 was up 20 points to 3117, and the Nasdaq was up 110 points to 10,056. Oil was up 71 cents to $40.46 per barrel. Natural gas was down a cent to $1.66. Gold was unchanged at $17.54.44 an ounce, and silver was also unchanged at $17.72 an ounce. Wheat is at $245 per metric ton, barley's at $248, canola's at $4.74, and corn is at $233 per metric ton. Live cattle were down 28 cents to $95.13, feeder cattle were down 80 cents to $131.75, and lean hogs were up $1.63 to $46.83. The Canadian dollar was unchanged on the day at $73.95 US. Recapping one of our top stories this hour, there was tragedy on the water this weekend in Cardston County. RCMP say a 4-year-old child died near Wolford Provincial Park. They received a call around 5:30 p.m. on Saturday about a missing child. A search and rescue team recovered the body of the child yesterday around 11:30 a.m. on a sandbar located a few kilometers from the park along the St. Mary River. The name of the child was not released. Human trafficking is still a major problem in many countries around the world, including right here in Canada. Up next, Jeanette Rocher chats with Joylyn Stickle from Not For Sale to discuss how girls are being saved from the terrible sex trade industry.
Human trafficking has unfortunately been a term widely used in all parts of the globe, and only in the last 10 years is it getting the media and government attention that it deserves. To put it plainly, modern-day slavery is a real thing affecting real human lives. Children all over the world are illegally trafficked and sexually abused. but there is a group right here in Lethbridge that's standing up for their rights. Not for Sale is an organization that has a passion to free those who are caught in the sex trade around the world. Joining me now is Joylyn Stickle, who heads up Not for Sale, and also Jen Tribble, who is working with Joylyn on this wonderful project. Ladies, thank you so much for joining me. I'm really excited about this topic and about hearing more about this. So let's start with where it began. And Joylyn, I believe that began with you, right? I want to know, what was the vision behind this and how did this begin?
Yeah, so about 10 years ago, I went to a conference and heard about human trafficking for the first time, and I had never heard about it before. I never knew that this was an issue. I never knew that kids were being abused this way, and my heart just broke. And I came home to my husband and said, I don't know what we can do. I don't know if what the two of us can do will make a difference, but we need to do something. And from that, Not for Sale was birthed. And so we just decided to step out and trust God with what little we could bring to the table. And since then, we've had amazing people come around us. We've had organizations that have just poured into this. And and we've seen really great things happen with being able to touch kids' lives in different ways.
Now, this is such a huge thing.
Yes.
And it's like, how does one even get the ball in motion? How do you even start to do this? It sounds really dangerous to go and save a girl. How do you do this?
Yeah, so it's different in different parts of the world. We're reaching out into Canada now, but we've been to Cambodia, and we are now working in Mexico. And so even between Cambodia and Mexico, there's different issues with government, there's different issues, especially in Mexico with the cartels. And so you just have to, you have to know what you're working with. It is dangerous, for sure. And so especially now what we've been working with in Mexico, it's been a lot of kind of learning what cartels are for, what cartels are against, and there are some that are fighting this as well, right? And that's what they stand up for, is the lives of children. But then there are some that aren't. And so we are involved with the government in Mexico. We're involved with locals in Mexico who kind of have a feel for what's going on there, and we need that. We can't just go in as Canadians and say, okay, well, we're going to go save the world without understanding the dynamics of the culture and what happens there.
Did you see a huge difference between Cambodia and then now being in Mexico?
Not huge per se. I think the biggest thing is, like I said, is the cartel in Mexico. There's not so much that dynamic in Cambodia, but there is still government things. I know we heard a story of one group that rescued a girl who belonged to one of the high ups in government, and somebody got killed because of that. And yeah, so there's corruption everywhere. Obviously, there's human trafficking everywhere, right? And that's corruption. So there's not tons that we notice different besides kind of the cartel and. Yeah.
Right. How do you find these girls? What do you do?
So in Cambodia, we worked with another ministry, and so our job as Not for Sale was to raise the finances and to staff the home, and so we did that. And this other group had a really good system going where men would go undercover into the brothels, and they were part of this other ministry, and they would go and just kind of get rapport with the madams who kind of oversaw everything, right? And they would, usually in the brothels or on the streets, you see the older girls, like 15, 16, 17.
Amazing that's the older girls.
Exactly, yeah. I thought of that when I said that. It's horrible. But they kind of hide the little ones. And the little ones are the ones that we want to help. We want to help as many as we can, but the little ones are the ones that it's harder because of government restrictions and because of social services and all that. A lot of groups aren't working with the little ones because it's really hard to get approvals and get things running with that. So that's our heart. That's what we want to do. And it's a lot of...
Now, when you say the little ones, how little? Like 8?
definitely 8. We've seen some as young as 6 in Cambodia, and we've heard stories as young as newborns. And so it's horrible for sure. As personally with our ministry, we've had 2 girls in our home so far in Mexico, and they've been 8 and 12. Yeah. And as far as going back to your question of how we get them, so in Cambodia, we worked with the other ministry, but in Mexico, these 2 girls we found just through a relationship with some of the local ladies who they just knew a lot of people on the streets. One of the ladies that was ministering with us was trafficked herself when she was younger, so she knew what to watch for and she knew all that. So so these 2 little girls were just through relationship and kind of hearing, okay, grandma up the street is selling her granddaughter and she needs help out, and so we got in there and were able to help with
That's
that.
unbelievable. Now, Jen, how long have you been working with Joylyn?
I think I came on about 7 years ago working with the organization, and I've loved every minute of it. We've got to do just some amazing things, and it's been an honor and a privilege to help this lady.
And you have gone to Mexico a couple times?
I have, yep. We've done 2 trips there so far, and probably many more to come.
Yeah. Right. What was your involvement when you went to Mexico? What did you get to do?
So the first trip we went with the team, which was a pretty amazing experience. We got to minister at a ladies' rehab facility. We also got to visit a couple of their local outreach programs. They have like a cardboard community. So we got to do a lot of the kind of like hands and feet on the ground kind of ministry work and establish connections. So that was really big for us. We got to kind of learn a little bit more about Mexico and the culture and what was going to kind of work there and translate well to Mexico, as well as on the second trip down, we started kind of looking for facilities, again, building relationships and connections. Right. And so that was a big part of those 2 trips.
Wow. When you say cardboard communities, what do you mean by that?
That's kind of how the missions base there described the area, and basically it's just a very impoverished, low-income area where literally people are living in cardboard huts.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's so sad.
Yeah.
Now, you don't have an actual established house, right? But you work with an organization that kind of finds you a place to put these girls, basically?
Right now, we actually are working to get a house of our own.
Right.
And just this week we signed a lease, and
Wow.
so it's very exciting that way. And so now we need to go through all the government approvals with that. And so Not for Sale itself brings in funds from donors, and we organize it all and work it that way. And then we have 2 staff down there who are local girls who just pour their hearts into. Right now, it's all the background work, all the stuff that's not flowery and whatever, not the stuff that you see on the websites, but all the government stuff and all the real estate stuff and everything. So all that is happening right now in hopes to have girls in the very near future.
Yeah, that's amazing. Speaking of your website, there are some stats on there that I noticed, like how expensive it is to operate the house, and so maybe let's get a little bit into that.
Yeah, absolutely. We broke it down to having it costs about $1,000 a month per girl, based on having 10 girls in the home. And that seems like a lot. That covers the rent, that covers the staffing, the food. Depending on the girl, we would probably want them to be homeschooled, just to keep them safe, right? And then they come in traumatized. We have some stories of some girls that we were able to help in Mexico there, and they come in just like it's not, okay, now you have a family and you're free and you're safe, so everything's good. No, they have tons of physical healing to do. They have tons of spiritual and emotional healing. And so a lot of that takes money, right? Having the counselors, having the doctors, having lawyers on call for being able to just help these girls out however they need.
Yeah. Are you allowed to say where in Mexico this is, or is it completely
classified? No, we do keep it classified, and it's scary out there because I know even in Alberta, the Mexican cartel is connected to Tabor and Alberta here, and so. For the sake of our team and for the sake of the girls down there, we keep everything as hush-hush as possible.
I don't blame you. That is actually very terrifying. Like, that's really scary. So I am just wondering, how can people, like I'm sure there's a lot of people that have a heart for what you are doing, and how can people get involved? How can people help?
Yeah.
That's great.
Answer
Yeah,
that?
for sure. There's several ways you can get involved. If you'd like to actually actively volunteer with the team, we have a form on our website, so you can visit our website and fill out a volunteer form. If you'd like to donate to the cause, there's also, you can go to the website and you can donate there. You could sponsor a girl for $100 a month or a child for $100 a month. We have ways you can share online, so we have our Facebook and Instagram. You can go on there and share, like, advocacy and awareness is huge. Education is huge. So if there's events, we can come in and speak at events. We have merch products, so you can actually be a walking billboard and support the cause that way. But yeah, it's really, it's about just kind of being a voice and getting out in the community and letting people know that it is an issue and that it's out there and it's real and it's affecting people. It affects people in Alberta. And so if there's opportunities to share, we're more than happy to come in and to help educate and raise awareness.
Yeah, and it's interesting that you say that you mentioned Alberta, because I mean, we think of this as being something that happens overseas and beyond the borders, but it actually does happen right here.
Yes.
Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, we are reaching out into Canada, so we're just looking at, again, government stuff and what would it look like to be licensed and to work in Canada. And it's very exciting for us because there are actually quite a few groups, but obviously not enough because there's still kids being trafficked out there. So in Canada, what we're finding is that everything's really quite underground, but in Canada you're not going to see brothels or you're not going to see young prostitutes on the street as you would in the countries that we've been in. But just kind of what our heart is with what Jen was saying with awareness and education is to educate even parents, right, as to what to look for with your kids online, what to look for if they see something off with their children or if they're acting differently beyond puberty, right?
Like, what's that?
What is this? Yes, that's a whole thing unto itself. But yeah, just educating that. But what we are wanting to do is to bring a safe home here as well, and just work with the government, work with the police. We have someone on our team who is in the police force, and they've had situations where girls have been brought in to the police station and they have nowhere to go. And so that breaks our hearts, and that's something we want to work with.
I know that, like, speaking of your website, again, there's tons of stats on the amount of, or the number of children that are being exploited. Do you have those numbers off the top of your head?
Well, yeah, and anything you look up, they're all like, because it's so underground, these are just either scratching the surface or we have no clue. But around 27 million people around the world are trafficked, and about 1.2 million children are brought into trafficking each year. And then also it's one of the biggest, if not the biggest, money-making business out there. Which
billions.
Like 32 billion is the last stat that we've been able to find. And it's above drugs, it's above arms trafficking. And the reason for that is the commodities, is what they say, are reusable. And so it's not like like you've used up drugs and you can't reuse them. So it's a horrible thing, and it's because it's such a big money maker, that's part of what makes it so dangerous. One of our girls in Mexico came in, and her story was she was 12, and she came in because I think it was her older sister was taking care of her, and she probably wasn't that much older, maybe 14. Her parents were out on drugs all the time and would sell the girls in order to get drug money. But the older sister, through relationship again, told one of our girls that sometimes the little sister was gone for weeks at a time because she was trying to find food or trying to find somewhere to sleep. And so when we were able to bring her in, she was nonverbal, like she was so traumatized by her life that she wouldn't talk, and she was just in a really bad place. She had never gone to school. She didn't know how to spell her name. And when she came in, she was in our home for probably 3 months, and she just the transformation in her life, just because she knew she was loved, she knew she was safe. She started talking, she started going to school, she started loving going to church. That was her favorite day. She would count down on the calendar when church was. And yeah, it was just so good. She went to school and was able to kind of just excel in school and just became a whole new girl because she felt safe and felt loved. And so that's our heart. Like you said at the beginning, it's so big. What can we do? And we're like, if we can help one girl, this is all worth it. But we'd love to help more.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, Joylyn Stickle and Jen Tribble, thank you so much for joining us here. It's just been it's been an honor to have you and to speak your hearts with me. Thank you so much for joining us.
It seems that more and more people like the idea of living life in a more natural and sustainable way. But how do you go about doing that? Our guest today has a few ideas on that topic. Mandy Sandbach is the president of the Lethbridge Sustainable Living Association. Welcome to BCN, Mandy.
Thank you for having me.
So let's talk a bit about your group, the Lethbridge Sustainable Living Association. What is it all about?
Well, originally, group started in 2012 with a group of folks who wanted to create an eco-village. They recognized there was a need to maybe live in a more sustainable way. Since then, it's kind of morphed and changed into this like grassroots, hands-on, skill-sharing, collaborative approach. And so we have several different initiatives in the community, the Fruit Rescue Program, Permaculture Lethbridge, the Community Clothing Swap, and the Zero Waste Initiative as well. And so through all of those different initiatives, we're able to reach out and start to help people on their sustainable journey, regardless of where they're at.
Now, Mandy, food is one of your focal points. Why is it so important for people to grow their own?
Oh, wow. It's quite a holistic approach, the way the LSLA looks at it. But for me personally, we all have great memories of growing food with Grandma and Grandpa in our garden spaces. It's like something that nourishes our soul. And keeps us in touch with nature, which is really important. But from a perspective of local food production, what we want to see is people empowered to actually start learning these basic skills. There was a time and a place where we had that information sort of shared down from generation to generation, and it hasn't quite been that way. And so what we want to see is people empowered with the skills and knowledge to be able to do that, so that they can first go into their backyards and grow with the space and the soil that they have available, and then be able to assess where they're at for their food needs, rather than having to rely on grocery stores totally and completely. The other thing that it does is it creates this beautiful sense of community as we're gathering together and we're sharing knowledge and we're looking for land, because not everybody has access to land to grow in. And so not only are we growing local food that grows community, but we're also eating cleaner food typically when it does come from shorter distances away.
I have an uncle and aunt that have an acreage out by Bowden, and it was just acres and acres, it seemed like anyway, of peas and carrots. And it was so wonderful. You know, you pull it out of the ground, take it off the vine, crack it open, eat it. It was so tasty and refreshing, right? Yeah. The only thing is when you got to harvest all those vegetables, right? That's a bit of work.
Yeah.
But I guess it's good exercise too at the same time.
Absolutely,
Now,
it's
do you
good.
teach gardening too, gardening skills?
The Lethbridge Sustainable Living, we offer a series of workshops and events and tours of different spaces that are growing. So not just that we teach the skills, but we're taking them and pointing them to people in the community who are still doing that, or are doing different ways to do that. Also, we collaborate with other organizations, like the Interfaith Food Bank has a learning garden. And so me personally, I will collaborate with them to do a series of workshops. And in what you'll see oftentimes in the spring is what's called the Seed to Supper program. And that's a basic gardening workshop. So we cover things like composting, water harvesting, building soil, companion planting, all the things that you need to know to have sustainable gardens.
What about those community gardens? I'm thinking specifically for people in condominiums or maybe apartments, right?
Yeah, absolutely. We have a lot of folks come to us and say, I'm in an apartment, how am I going to grow? Indoor growing is difficult at best, but sometimes they have a patio, and so you can look at container gardening in those spaces. But we also have community and communal gardens here in Lethbridge. So the Kinsman Park, for example, has a communal garden that's just open for anyone in the neighborhood to come in and participate in. In places like Copperwood, they're actually designing these community gardens to be actually in those spaces. So you can get a plot for community gardens as well if you don't have land of your own.
What about food storage? For many people, that can be a serious challenge.
Yeah, it is. That's another one of those skills, right, that used to be passed down from generation to generation. And so part of our mandate is really bringing back those basic skills and start teaching people how to start preserving, whether it's canning or jamming or pickling or dehydrating, making applesauce, things like that. And so making those workshops accessible financially as well as locationally. And then that collaborative approach comes in again in terms of partnering with places like the Soup Kitchen or the Interfaith Food Bank to utilize their spaces and teach their clientele as well how to do it.
The first time I tried some of the dried out fruit, such as like bananas,
Yeah.
it was almost like banana jerky.
Mm-hmm.
It was kind of cool, you know, it was kind of tasty, and I tried that as a kid. I thought, this is really neat.
Yeah.
And it's healthy too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Better than the alternative with a lot of candies for kids, right?
Absolutely, yeah, especially if we're comparing it to processed sugars and things like that.
Mandy, you have something as well called the Fruit Rescue Program.
Yeah.
What is that all about?
Yeah, the Fruit Rescue Program is an initiative of the LSLA, and is a group of volunteers. And so I need to be really clear, we're not a fruit picking service, because you can't just phone us up and we'll come pick your fruit.
Apples, right? Sure.
We're limited by our volunteer base. But what we do is we have a relationship with landowners who have fruit trees and shrubs that they're not able to get to picking. Lots of our seniors can't get out and get their trees picked.
Of course, yeah.
And then we have a group of volunteers, and so what we do is we match our volunteers with our landowners, and we create these picking events where we're able to utilize the fruit. Thousands and thousands of pounds of fruit every year we divert from falling on the ground, and distribute it within the community, both to our seniors, the landowners, our volunteer pickers, the food bank, the soup kitchen, lots of different places. Recently, in the last couple of years, the Fruit Rescue Program was able to raise money for a commercial apple press, and so that's allowed us to be really mobile and actually go out to the spaces, pick the apples, for example, on site, and then do the juicing and the pasteurization there, and then distribute it in the form of juice as well.
How about when it comes to vegetables and helping people pick their vegetables? Do you have some veggie tales for us?
No veggie tales. We are limited again by the amount of volunteers that we have. So what we do offer is the ability to share some knowledge and pass that information around. So part of the community creation is that we have this beautiful foundation for being able to put people in touch with one another so that they can help people out. So for example, if our seniors need certain fruit and they can't get out to pick it, we'll pick a bag and take it to them. And so we try to connect our volunteers in that way, whether it's veggies or fruit. It just happens that we have a real abundance of fruit here in Lethbridge. Sour cherries, pears, apples of all kinds, raspberries, all the berries. So lots of abundance.
Now, you encourage people as well to buy local, but doesn't it get to be a little expensive, though, when you're going to the farmer's market? I mean, you're supporting local producers, which is wonderful, but sometimes people can't afford that.
Yeah, the cost is it's a really veiled process, too, in terms of the cost. We have lots of different issues within that shopping local idea. From the perspective of sustainability and regeneration, we always want to support local because we want to keep those people employed. We want our food to have the least impact miles-wise, kilometers-wise, fossil fuel-wise, that it possibly can. And so cost becomes one of those things that we vote with our money
And
on.
maybe less pesticides as well?
Absolutely,
On a lot of
way
those fruits
less,
and vegetables,
absolutely.
right? Which is healthier for you?
Absolutely. So there's always this like organic or non-organic conversation, and I think it's less about that and more about what are the ethics of how the farmer's grown it, how close is it to me? Do I have a relationship with these people? That's a really important thing to consider. And so the other thing that you can do to keep the cost down is buy in bulk. So one of the things we offer as an organization is a cooperative ordering group where we can order large volumes and divide it up and you get it at a discount. All farmers have an ugly crop of carrots or potatoes that they can't sell in the store, and so you can approach the farmers if you have a relationship with them and say, hey, I'm happy to take your ugly beets or potatoes or carrots at a discounted rate, and that's often what happens. So there's ways around that cost.
That's a great idea. I mean, they're still
Yeah.
healthy for you.
Yeah,
You're still getting
absolutely.
the same nutrients, right?
Yes,
Vitamins
absolutely.
and minerals.
And better nutrients because they haven't been transported so long as what they would be if they came from California and things like that.
Let's talk about free-range meat and eggs. My father used to love, when I was a kid, buying the Hutterite chickens, he used to call them, right?
Yes, yeah.
And because they were so big and plump and they were healthy, they weren't plumped up artificially, right? How
yeah.
important is that, too?
Oh, it's really important. I think the important piece for my belief and what the LSLA tries to share is that you're asking questions. Who's your farmer? Where are they? Do you know them? Do you know what their practices are? And so it's less about spray or don't spray or plump them full of things or not, and more about just knowing that piece of it. Again, is
short amount of distances our meat and our eggs come, the better off it is, the more nutrient dense it is, the better quality it is. And so you'll find that there's lots of farmers, local farmers, especially around Lethbridge, who may not be organic, but they're using ethical processes and they're not putting anything excess into the animals that needs to be. You can actually go out and witness the way they're farming. And so that's really great. Once you've had a taste for clean meat, I'll call it, free range is sort of, there's so many terms, and it depends who's selling the product in terms of like what it actually is. But ask those questions about how they treat the animals, take a tour. But once you've had a taste for it, so we used to have our own eggs when we lived out of the city, and everybody we gave our eggs to, they're ruined for store-bought eggs anymore because there's such a difference in quality
spoiled,
and taste
right?
and texture. Yeah, and so it becomes in high demand, and that becomes a quality of life thing that you choose for you and your family. And the cost, you find ways around that. So.
What about when it comes to clothing? Do a lot of people still like to make their own clothes?
Oh, wow.
Outside
yeah.
of grandma making the mittens and toques for the
My grandma
wintertime?
made so many of our clothes, and at the time I did not appreciate it, and now I definitely do. I don't know a ton of people who make their own clothes. I do know a couple of people who make them fashionably, but another option that we have are the things like our community clothing swap, where we gather donations of clothing and then we redistribute it. There's hundreds of thousands of pounds of clothes go into landfills every week of the year on the planet, and so if we can distribute that locally and get it moving within the economy here in town, then you don't have to buy that many extra clothes. There's no reason for that to be. So we provide that opportunity through our clothing swap.
Mandy, some people just don't like buying used clothing.
There's certain
They're
things
like, ew! You know how many sleeves and
Absolutely.
pits have been on this shirt? Like, no.
Absolutely.
So how do you convince people that, why buy
Yeah.
new when used will do?
Yeah, I don't believe in convincing people for anything. You either hear that call or you don't. And that's kind of how we function as an organization. We just want people to know we're here if that does feel right to you. There's certain items of clothing I won't buy used. I will only buy new, or I'll make on
undergarments,
my
for instance, right?
Absolutely. And what we ask for from our community when they're donating is gently used. So if it has holes and you're not wearing it, we don't expect somebody else to wear your nasty socks. Like, that doesn't need to happen.
That ain't right.
No, it's not at all. But you can find some really great, name brand if that's what you're into. We have
Well, like
lots
my kids,
of things.
Oshkosh, that was a big thing way back when.
Absolutely. And my kids now as teenagers, they have like Champion and Adidas and all the things like that. We have those things donated. And when it's happening on a regular basis, you know that you can purge your closet, get a new group of clothes that, fills that gap if you want to feel like you've had some new clothes without a big cost associated with it.
Now, sometimes you also host make your own cleaners events.
Yes.
What are they all about?
Yeah, so that's another collaboration with the Purple Carrot here in town, and that's something that I do. So the LSLA will sometimes host that, and other people that we work with will. So the do-it-yourself cleaners is just really an introduction to how else we can make our own cleaners. So rather than bringing a bunch more chemical and plastic ware into the world, we're going to teach people how to make their own basic cleaners as well. And they work really, really well. There's this notion that the only way we can clean is by using bleach, for example. And there's tons and tons of studies
Well, for
talking.
mold, I know bleach really
Absolutely,
helps,
and it works
right?
really well, and there's a time and a place for it.
Right.
But just our general cleaners, if we're just cleaning the bathroom or we're doing windows, vinegar and water works pristine to clean a window, for example. And so
Does it matter what kind of vinegar, like white
I would use a
vinegar?
white vinegar,
Okay.
yeah. So sometimes the apple cider vinegar, for example, is a little thicker.
Right.
But we want to empower people and inspire them to start looking around their kitchen to see how else they can use some of the supplies they have. So everything that we do and everything that we teach, no matter what the workshop is, will always be accessible. You don't have to buy a bunch of fancy things in order for it to help, in order for you to be able to use it. And the DIY household cleaners things about education, and then making their own, taking them home and trying them, and then they get to play with that formula and see how it works better for them.
I remember many years ago I was talking to an environmentalist saying to me, if you ever want to wash your vehicle, park it on your lawn. That way the water is going to go right into the grass and you can feed your grass at the same time,
Yes,
right? Instead of out
absolutely.
on your driveway or the sidewalk on the street, right? But what kind of natural soaps or detergents would you recommend as opposed to the store-bought brands?
Yeah, so there's a product called Castile soap. It's a basic hemp soap. In some of our stores, what we have are really...
You use that for vehicles?
No, not for vehicles specifically,
for your
just
hands,
regular
okay.
formulation for regular soap. Yeah,
Oh,
so
okay.
Castile soap I would use for making like a liquid hand soap in a foamer pumper
How about
with
for
some
vehicles,
essential
commercial?
oils.
Is there anything?
I would use the same thing for the vehicle.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
absolutely. You have to be aware of formulation because some of the products, all the products, will leave a film if you have too much of it. So it's a bit of experimentation in terms of how it works for you, right? Most of the people I speak with aren't so much concerned about their vehicle. It's more about how am I going to clean my kids and my clothes and my kitchen counter and my bathroom. So part of what we want to inspire in people is this really creative process. So here's some information. Build on it, play with it, formulate it the way you want to, the way it works for your life and your journey, because not everybody's going to start by making their own cleaners. Maybe they start in a different way on their sustainable journey. And so we want to always leave it open so that they can actually make those choices for themselves.
I've tried some of those handmade soaps, you know, with the oatmeal and the honey, and oh, it's just amazing. The smell and the texture and the feel, and it's so worth it. And it lasts a lot longer than the commercial soaps, right?
Yeah, it does.
With all the chemicals.
Yeah.
Now, what about zero waste? You guys actually have a zero waste social gathering. What's that all about?
Yes, we do. So it was sort of inspired by Southern Alberta Zero Waste, which is the group on Facebook, and we've kind of taken it under our wing. So what we've realized is nobody needs any more meetings in life. Nobody needs any more sort of like strict, rigid spaces. So we just want to create a social event. And what we're doing is leaving it up to the people who are attending those to really decide what we're doing. So for example, last month we gathered in a space, we had some tea, some snacks, and we made reusable tissues and reusable paper towels. We just cut up some extra fabric and we all came in and made ourselves a set, and then off we went. So we're going to do a bit of a skill share. Every month it'll be something different. It might be like a documentary, it might be just somebody sharing a skill with the group. Might make some reusable products, it just depends.
Mandy Sandbach, President of the Lethbridge Sustainable Living Association, thanks so much for joining me today in studio.
Thanks for having me.
On behalf of all of us here at BCN, I'm Hal Roberts. God bless, and thanks so much for watching.